The last thing I expected when I walked into that meeting room was to be ambushed like a criminal. My boss was smiling, not warmly, but the way a snake sizes up a rat. And just like that, after 8 years of building that company from the ground up, I was fired. No warning, no severance, just a cold line. Your services are no longer needed. Before we dive in, where are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. Help us reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of the month. I made a promise to my dog. Once we hit 10K, I'll buy him a brand new cooling mat. He's counting on you, and so am I. So if you enjoyed the story, please hit that subscribe button. My name is Jason Rourke. I'm 35, stubborn in the best way, and I don't play office politics. I play for keeps. Or at least, I used to, until the day they made the biggest mistake of their lives. It started like any other Monday. Coffee in hand, Spotify's Confidence Boost playlist in my ears. I just closed the biggest client pitch of my life. A $12 million annual retainer that would have paid bonuses across 3 departments. That was my 3rd monster win this quarter. I should have been flying. Instead, I walked into silence. No congrats, no backpats, just eyes avoiding mine. Whispers that stopped when I entered rooms. I ignored it, brushed it off as jealousy. You get used to that when you outperform your department head 5 years running. Then came the invite. 9 a.m., Exec Room B with Mark. Mark, my boss. Technically Vice President of Growth, but really, the guy who took credit for every one of my wins and threw me under the bus the second anything went sideways. I opened the door and instantly knew. Mark was already seated. HR was there. So was the company lawyer. "Jason," Mark said, not looking up. "Have a seat." I didn't sit. "I'm going to keep this brief," he continued. "We've decided to go in a different direction with the strategic accounts team. Your position has been terminated effective immediately." My heart didn't drop. It froze. I stared at him. "Are you serious?" HR jumped in. "We can talk details, Jason, but the decision's final. We ask that you hand over your badge and laptop now. You'll be escorted out." I actually laughed. "I just landed Quantum Sin. That client alone covers payroll for 2 departments. You're firing me?" Mark finally looked up. "We appreciate your contributions, Jason. But we've reviewed your conduct and, frankly, leadership doesn't feel confident in your alignment with our values." Conduct? They wouldn't elaborate, wouldn't explain. Just handed me a folder, cold and thin. Probably didn't even bother fabricating a reason that made sense. As I packed up my desk, my phone buzzed. A text from a friend in finance. "They're replacing you with Brian. He's Mark's nephew. This was planned." I stared at the message. My hands were shaking. 8 years, burned weekends, missed birthdays, all of it tossed out like trash because Mark wanted to give his frat boy nephew my job. But what Mark didn't know was this. I had proof. Every lie, every manipulation, every side deal. And in 48 hours, I'd be sitting across from the real decision makers. I didn't cry. Not then. Not when I got to the parking lot and sat behind the wheel for 15 minutes, staring at nothing. Not even when I looked at the building I'd practically bled for, knowing I'd just been stabbed in the back inside it. What I felt was colder than grief, sharper than anger. I felt clarity. Mark had underestimated me. Again. He thought I was just some workhorse, crank out the numbers, keep my head down, say yes when he took credit. But I hadn't been blind. I'd noticed the shady invoicing on his special client entertainment budget. The contractor kickbacks. The fact that Brian, his smug, khaki-clad nephew, had been shadowing me just to learn for the past 3 months. Hell, the kid could barely spell CRM. Mark had been grooming my replacement while I landed the biggest client this company had ever seen. But here's the thing. I don't believe in blind loyalty. Not anymore. I'd been quietly documenting everything. Screenshots, expense reports, emails, Slack messages where Mark joked about fudging numbers, even a Zoom recording where he accidentally bragged about how leadership doesn't read contracts anyway, while approving an inflated budget line. And Quantum Sin? They didn't sign the final contract with the company, they signed with me. I built that relationship from scratch, 3 years of earning their trust, one coffee and crisis call at a time. And the CEO, Lila, didn't like politics. She liked results. So while Mark was busy plotting my exit, I was quietly ensuring that all the real power, the trust, the strategy decks, the long-term roadmap, stayed with me. I called her that night. "Lila, it's Jason." There was a pause, then I heard. Word travels fast. "Yeah," I said. "Listen, if you want to pull the plug on the deal, I'd understand. But I need you to know, the guy who just fired me is the same guy who once tried to bill you for a $7,000 client dinner that never happened. I've got receipts, and more." She didn't even hesitate. "Jason, can you be in New York by Thursday? I think we should talk." I looked out my window. My world had imploded 12 hours earlier, but suddenly, I was breathing again. "I'll be there." The next morning, Mark went on LinkedIn and posted one of those smug, fake leader updates. "Sometimes we have to make tough decisions for the health of the organization. Excited to see where the future takes us." The comments were full of ass-kissing. But then, I noticed one from Lila herself. "Interesting take, Mark. Looking forward to revisiting our contract structure. Change can be good." I grinned for the first time in days. He had no idea. Because by Thursday, I wouldn't just be meeting with Lila, I'd be walking into a pitch meeting at her company to consult on a new division. And that folder of receipts? That was just the beginning. I landed in New York with one carry-on and a backpack full of dynamite, not literal, but digital. Proof of Mark's corruption, Brian's nepotism, and enough inside dirt to scorch half the leadership team if I really wanted to. But I didn't come here to scorch, I came here to build. The receptionist at Quantum Sin's headquarters greeted me by name, like I'd never left. I'd visited their offices a dozen times before, always as the guy in the blazer who made their problems disappear. Now I was here on my own terms. Lila met me in the executive lounge, not the boardroom. That was the first sign. "Jason," she said, hugging me lightly, "you look 10 pounds lighter." "That's unemployment for you," I smiled. She waved a hand and poured 2 coffees. "We've been watching things unfold from the sidelines. Mark's post yesterday?" She rolled her eyes. "Textbook corporate garbage fire." I leaned forward. "He thinks you'll still sign. That Brian can just slide into my role." Lila actually laughed. "Brian sent us an email this morning, with a GIF in the signature." I winced. "Oh, God." "It was from the Wolf of Wall Street." I winced harder. Lila took a sip of coffee and got serious. "We're not signing. But I didn't bring you here just to gossip. Jason, I've got a problem, and I think you're the solution." She slid a folder across the table. A full-time executive consulting offer. Title, Strategic Growth Advisor. Salary? Let's just say more than I made in my last 2 years combined. Plus equity. "You built our trust," she said. "You made things happen. We want you running point on all North American expansion. No red tape, no Mark, just clean work." I sat back, speechless. I'm honored." Lila nodded. "Take a day, think it over. But full transparency, We're also preparing to file a breach of contract claim against your old company. Your insights and your receipts could help shape that case. Boom. That was the second sign. They weren't just firing back, they were arming me. I spent the next 24 hours in a hotel room combing through my archive. Contracts, budget files, internal emails. I even found a message thread where Mark admitted, and I quote, "It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission," in reference to falsifying an invoice. When I handed it over the next day, Lila's legal team looked like they'd just been handed a winning lottery ticket. "This," one of them said, "is nuclear." And just like that, I had a job offer, leverage, and a seat at a bigger table. But I wasn't done. I had one more move to make. For every coworker still stuck under Mark's boot, for every late-night call he took credit for every bit of loyalty he drained out of me like I was disposable. I just needed to trigger it at the perfect time. And that time? It was coming sooner than he'd ever expect. I didn't sleep much that week, not because of anxiety, because of adrenaline, the kind you get when every piece of a long game finally clicks into place. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to someone else's power play. I was the power play. Lila's offer was signed and sealed. My new title, Strategic Growth Advisor, came with a press release ready to go. But we held it. Timing was everything. I had one last card left to flip. Her legal team had begun drafting a formal breach of contract notification to my old company. That alone would have been enough to send Mark into damage control. But I had something better. An email, a simple one, to Quantum Syn's old executive liaison at my former company, a guy named Garrett, one of the few decent people left there. Subject line: "This is what he's been hiding." I attached a curated bundle of documents, not the full nuke, just enough to raise serious flags. The fake client dinner invoices, the inflated software purchase coincidentally routed through a friend's shell company, and a Slack screenshot of Mark telling Brian to delete all financial Slack convos weekly. Can't be foya'd if it doesn't exist. I hit send. Then I waited. It took 2 hours. At 3:17 p.m., I got a message from a former coworker. "Dude, full audit. Mark just got pulled into a closed door with legal and finance." At 4:02 p.m. Brian's crying. I'm not exaggerating. Crying in the bathroom. I sat in a Brooklyn cafe, sipping a cortado, watching the chaos unfold from 300 miles away. By 5:30 p.m., it was official. Quantum Syn's board had pulled out of the deal entirely. Lila's team delivered a formal withdrawal citing integrity concerns and financial misrepresentation. A few minutes later, their general counsel served a breach notice. And then, at 6:12 p.m., my LinkedIn post went live. After 8 unforgettable years, I was unexpectedly let go last week. But life has a funny way of clearing your path. I'm thrilled to join Quantum Syn as Strategic Growth Advisor, leading expansion efforts across North America. Grateful to those who believed in me, especially those who didn't. The reaction was instant. Over 500 likes in the first hour, dozens of DMs from ex-colleagues, recruiters, even Mark's peers congratulating me, clearly unaware of what had just erupted behind his office door. By 9 p.m., I got the final message that tied the whole thing together. Garrett just quit. Said he's done covering for thieves. I leaned back in my chair. The city lights blurred through the cafe window. That was it. Mark hadn't just lost a contract. He'd lost the trust of his biggest partner. His golden boy nephew was exposed as a paperweight in Dockers. His own audit team was now picking through every transaction he'd buried for years. And me? I was just getting started. But I wasn't going to gloat. No smug texts, no passive-aggressive emails, no victory laps. Instead, I drafted one more message. this one for someone who actually deserved to know what really happened behind the scenes. And she'd been in the dark far too long. I hesitated before hitting send. Not because I was scared, but because this was the only part that still hurt. Her name was Kendra Hale, Director of Client Services, and one of the most competent, principled people I'd ever worked with. We'd spent 6 years in the trenches together, fixing messes from the inside, shielding the junior team from Mark's tantrums, and keeping clients from jumping ship. She wasn't just a colleague, she was a friend, and the only person I truly hated lying to. But I had to. If Kendra had known what I was doing, if she'd gotten even a whiff of the trap I was setting, Mark would have sniffed it out through her. He watched her closely. He respected her, but in the creepy, possessive way weak men do when they know a smarter woman makes them obsolete. So I wrote carefully, "Hey Kendra, I owe you an explanation. I didn't just walk away quietly, and I wasn't just fired for misalignment. There was a lot more going on. You've probably seen the fallout by now. I want you to know I didn't burn anything without thinking. I protected people, you included. I left some files in a secure folder. If you still believe in doing the right thing, you'll want to see them. Either way, thank you. For everything. Jason." Attached was a single encrypted link. Inside, a read-only dossier of documents, the same ones I'd sent QuantumSyn, plus internal Slack messages Mark had sent mocking her directly. Things like, "Kendra's smart, sure, but too emotional for VP, you'll see. She's loyal, but loyalty's cheap. Give her a bonus and she'll stay in her lane." I felt sick rereading them. She had bled for that company. The next morning, I woke up to a single-line reply. "Jason, I'm in." An hour later, she posted a vague but powerful message on LinkedIn. "Loyalty without truth is slavery. Sometimes integrity means starting over. More soon." It exploded. People knew. By 5 p.m., I got another DM. This one from someone unexpected. Amir Patel, the company's head of legal. We'd barely spoken when I worked there, but his name was on half the contracts I'd reviewed. His message? "I've reviewed your archive. You did the right thing. This might blow wide open. Internal counsel is launching a third-party investigation. I suggest staying close to your sources. Quietly." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about getting fired anymore. It was about cleansing an entire system built on favoritism, fraud, and fear. And I hadn't just cracked it open. I'd given people like Kendra a way out. A few days later, she called me directly. "Jason, I'm leaving," she said, "but not before I give the board one hell of a resignation letter. And there's something else." She paused. "You weren't the only one keeping receipts." I nearly dropped my phone. "Kendra, what do you mean?" "I mean," she said, voice steady, "I've been recording every leadership meeting for the last 18 months. Mark never noticed, and trust me, what I've got makes your stuff look like parking tickets." I just stared out the window in stunned silence. We hadn't just exposed corruption. We were about to bury it. Kendra wasn't bluffing. The audio files she'd archived, dozens of them, were brutal. Weekly leadership meetings where Mark casually joked about massaging performance metrics before board reviews, conversations about manipulating severance packages to discourage whistleblowing, and in one recording, clear as glass, "If Jason gets too big for his britches, we cut him loose. No risk. His wins are ours once he's gone." That one hit different. It wasn't just betrayal, it was policy. She uploaded the entire vault to an anonymous legal drop set up by QuantumSyn's third-party counsel. Within 72 hours, the board at my old company had no choice but to act. Mark was suspended. Brian resigned voluntarily. And an internal memo went out with all the classic PR language: realignment, commitment to integrity, leadership evolution. But the people inside knew. Everyone who'd ever sat through Mark's gaslighting, everyone who'd watched Brian fail upward while they got passed over, everyone who'd stayed late to clean up messes that never made it into the QBR. They knew. I got messages from them for weeks. You lit the match, man. Thank you. Kendra's a legend. She said you were the first domino. I'm finally leaving too. Feels like I can breathe again. And then, one day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Garrett, the ex-executive liaison who'd quit in protest during the fallout. Jason, he said, I'm building something new. Clean capital, smart team. We're poaching talent from the ruins. You in? I laughed. I just started with Quantum Sin, Garrett. He chuckled back. So consult with us. Side deal, you're the guy everyone trusts now. 1 month later, I sat in a glass-walled conference room in Manhattan, across from Lila, pitching Quantum Sin's new expansion model with a small team, Kendra, at my side. She'd officially joined as Director of Strategic Operations. Different title. Way more power. She looked happier than I'd ever seen her. After the pitch, Lila pulled me aside. You know, she said, I don't think you just burned a bridge. I think you built a damn highway. I smiled. Yeah, and this time I'm driving. The last I heard of Mark, he was still on leave, waiting out the results of the investigation. But here's the part that tastes sweeter than revenge. I never spoke his name again in any press release, any interview, any panel. He became invisible, while I became undeniable. Because I didn't fight dirty, I didn't throw public punches, I just did the work, told the truth. Let the facts do what they do best. And it worked. So if you're sitting there, reading this, wondering if integrity ever wins, let me leave you with this. It doesn't just win, it rewrites the whole damn game.